What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday, and welcome back to the NBA Hardwood Show. Talking today's 10-game DraftKings slate. We've got 12 games on FanDuel. Big NBA Wednesday. A lot of big prize pools out there. All that good stuff. I'm Draft Shoot, of course, joined today by the usual crew. We got AP, we got Mangone, and we got a lot of basketball to talk about. Let's throw it to you. AP, how you doing on this Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, doing really well. Excited. Wednesday, and I like what they've done. They've broken up the slates a little bit. They kept the 2 night games off. And, we're going to have at Run Per Sports, we like having all the content that we can have. I'm going to make sure that we have, if they continue to do this, which I think they will, and we'll continue to get good prize pools in the for the night 2-game slate. We're going to have some specific content dedicated to that. But no, this slate looks like a ton of fun. We got some, chalk Jazz, chalk Cavs, and Pistons, it seems like. So, and I ran an optimal early on. I posted in chat. There was like 4 backups or 4 reserve players in the lineup. So, like, it should be a fun night. Maybe a lot of tilt, but it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, always a lot of tilt. No matter what happens, somebody's tilting. But yeah, 10 games on the slate on DraftKings. That means there's more options than usual. And I don't know, with the way pricing is, with how tight it is, I do kind of like these bigger slates because it just gives you a few more options. It gives you more, time to wait for value, see if that emerges, all that good stuff. Mangone, let's throw it over to you. Still in Paris, I see. How you doing on this Wednesday afternoon?
Yes, always chilling by the Eiffel Tower. Hopefully JT will show up as well. But yeah, it's been a good time. Over here at Run Pure, we got tons of stuff going on. I mean, the golf content is in full effect and swing. So excited for golf season to start up. But of course, we got 10 games in the NBA today, and I'm excited for it. I'm with you, DC. I like a little more games. I like the ownership to spread out a little bit. So should be a fun slate. And we have news that we've already gotten. We have news we might get, and we'll see how it all shakes out. I think it's going to be a good slate, though, so excited to break it down.
Absolutely. No time to waste with 10 games to talk about, so let's jump right into it. We'll follow the DraftKings order of games as we always do, and we start off with a doozy. A repeat, I think the 5th time Milwaukee and Indiana have played this year. Total down, I think, from 260 on Monday all the way down to 257.5. Milwaukee is favored by 3.5. No real news. Well, actually, that's not true. Milwaukee, Chris Middleton, big news there. He's questionable. That would certainly open up some minutes for some of the wing players from Milwaukee, but I think most importantly, bump the Milwaukee stars, guys like Giannis and Brook Lopez. And then Indiana does have significant news. Bruce Brown and Andrew Nembhard, both questionable. Brown has missed the last 3 or 4 games. Nembhard got hurt on Monday. And on Monday, Mangone, I believe we both nailed our plays of the day from this game. I think you had Brook Lopez. I know I had Benedict Mathurin. Both of those guys crushed pretty hard. So we'll see if you're going back to the well there on Mr. Lopez. But your thoughts overall on Milwaukee and Indiana? Certainly a good game to open up this slate.
Yeah, I mean, one thing to call out with the Brook Lopez thing is, I've done it 2 in a row, and that might be my play of the day again. We'll have to see. I got to see what his ownership ends up being. But Brook Lopez is $6K, and he's just too cheap for this matchup. One thing I liked about my play of the day, and yours for sure, DC, and I like this range of players, is trying to find the guys in that 4 or 5 to maybe mid 6K range that just have 40-point ceilings, right? And just making sure to get exposure to them because they just have the ability to break the slate. I had a really good team the other night, but I didn't have Benedict Mathurin on one of them. And the team that I was rooting on that I thought was pretty good in my single entry stuff, it just couldn't win, right? Because it just can break the slate. And I think Brook Lopez has the ability to do that once again at 6K. So I'm in on him. This Chris Middleton news is massive. Good news is we'll get that early on. Chris Middleton is 7.3K. And again, I talked about his minutes. I've been out on him for a while, but I've been back in since I've seen the minutes trend up. Listen, if he's going to play, I've at least noticed the forward position kind of sucks right now. Just it feels like in general. And I try to figure out who's that guy that's not going to just bury me at that position. And I think at this price, yeah, it's expensive, but I don't think he's the worst play in the world. He feels kind of safe. If he's in, I'll play him. If not, it's going to shake up the slate and make things interesting. And then it's going to be kind of like the last slate where you're going to want to consider getting Giannis right after the Ballgate situation at 11.9K. But the question is, will we have enough of the value? I think we would have enough value. And with Middleton out, that would be intriguing. You'd obviously want to consider Bobby Portis too at 5.7. So everything hinges on the Chris Middleton stuff to kind of kick the slate off. That's going to really dictate how things start. If we look at the Indiana side of the ball, the Nembhard stuff is important. Bruce Brown, I'm assuming he's out. I mean, there is a chance that Nembhard sits and then Brown plays. And of course, then you'd see similar type of rotations that we've seen in the past. But Mathurin at 5.5, I still think you can play him because of the ceiling that he shows. Aaron Nesmith at 5.6, I think he's perfectly fine. He's going to get a lot of minutes. Kind of a safe play, but you're not expecting a huge ceiling there. I know Jalen Smith busted in this spot last time. He didn't get a ton of minutes. I'm a little cautious with someone like him. I just don't think I love the spot. And then Miles Turner at 7K, I just think there's better center options on this slate. The last slate, I didn't mind him just because I felt like there weren't as many center options. Here we have enough where I don't think I need to go to a Miles Turner. So all in all, the Chris Middleton news is important. I like Brook Lopez no matter what. I think he's going to be a good play regardless. I think if Middleton is out, listen, you're going to want to play Bobby Portis probably. You're going to want to look to Giannis Antetokounmpo if you have the value. So that's going to be a big decision point that we'll have to look at. If Middleton's in, I think he's a really solid play. That's a safe value at 7.3. He's just not going to kill you, right? He's going to probably find his way to get there. But if there's other values that open up, I'd probably ditch Chris Middleton. And then the Indiana side of the ball, I did not mention the Halliburton stuff, but at 10-2, he's in the conversation today for sure in this matchup. Any guard against Milwaukee is just in the conversation. I think you have to consider Mathurin as well. And if Nembhard and Brown are out, well, that's going to open up some other opportunities for other guards that we got to consider.
Yeah, certainly a lot depends on how the injury news breaks out with Middleton, Brown, and Nembhard. We did get price bumps from Monday on several of these guys, including Mathurin's up, I think price is up $700 in one slate, which is a big jump for him. Giannis went up $900 from 11K to 11.9. So deserved bumps, I guess, after Monday's big performances. But if you were on those guys like I was, a little disappointing to see because I would kind of like to go back to him, but a little bit more difficult. Now, let's go to UAP. Yeah, I think Mangone covered a lot of it, but I mean, Giannis has just smashed the Pacers, which, I mean, we talked about it Monday. It makes total sense given how the Pacers play and the weaknesses that they have, get out in transition, all that stuff. So Giannis, very expensive today, but I would expect nothing other than another smash from him. Your thoughts on Giannis, Halliburton, and, of course, the rest of this game as well.
Yeah, Giannis averaging a pretty nice number against this Pacers team. A lot of that has to do with, obviously, the pace and the lack of rim protection. I mean, the Pacers were throwing two bigs at him early and often in that game. It still didn't really slow him down. He was actually forced. So if you go look at the box score, you'll see 11 assists. Nice triple-double from our guy Giannis there. Was forcing him to pass the ball out, which I think is good. Like Giannis, when he continues to develop that in his game, is only gonna make him that much more valuable as a player, getting his other guys involved. So Giannis, probably likely the top spend tonight. I mean, the Pacers have the Bucks number, and the Bucks once again are favorites. I'm very tempted here to take the Pacers side and potentially money line. I just think that they're going to get up for this one. A couple of things that I do want to note. You got to I agree with Mangone. Chris Middleton is huge because they've been running a really tight rotation, especially against this team. So that will just be more usage for probably Giannis. Dame has really struggled in this matchup. One other thing to note, rotational-wise, they like TJ McConnell. Now, I still think there's a lot of risk here. He closed with them, but that's also because he was cooking. And the Pacers had a nice comeback in that game and it ended up winning. And we all know Rick Carlisle. If someone's cooking, he's going to continue to ride the hot hand, and that's what happened with TJ McConnell. So, and now his price is up too. He was in the 3K range that last time. So I do think there's risk in a guy like that. And I do think due to him doing so well in this matchup, his ownership will be potentially slightly inflated as well. So am I removing him from my player pool? No, he's been very successful in this matchup. I just will say there's a lot of risk here as well. So for me in this game, it's the other thing too that I did is I ran just like a base. Rubio and I do it on our SaberSim shows, just kind of, we call it our base build. And it's just taking the average projections out there, sorting it, kind of like you would in a cash type build, projecting for the optimal lineup. And we were getting no Bucks or Pacers players in those builds. So I thought that was very interesting. But for me, it's the studs here. It's Giannis mainly. Pacers, the rotation is just highly, highly volatile, a bit unpredictable, better suited for tournaments. And then Halliburton, he's, the guy that you can always go to, but there are a couple plays that are just a little bit cheaper that I think are a little bit safer that we're going to talk about here very, very soon.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. McConnell, it's simple for me with McConnell. If Brown and Nembhard are both out, I'm probably playing TJ McConnell at 4K, just given the upside that he brings at that price point. But if either one of those guys are in, I just think the minutes aren't very secure. So we'll see on that. Obviously, the early game will get that news early. Minutes projection for DiVincenzo. We'll talk about that when we get to the Knicks game, which I think is interesting. We got some strong opinions on that one, but we'll get there eventually. For now, we'll move on to the only other game in this early 7 p.m. Eastern time window. It is Washington and Cleveland. No real new injury news in this one. Cleveland remains without Garland, remains without Mobley, which of course has changed their team. It made them, seemingly a little bit more predictable. Donovan Mitchell, it's every night with him, and it's been 4 or 5 straight games for Mr. Jarrett Allen. I know he came back down to earth a tiny bit in the last game, but still nearly 40 fantasy points on DraftKings, not bad at all. And now both of these guys who are on fire get the GOAT matchup against the Washington Wizards. They're favored by 9.5 here at home, 240 total. Start with you with this one on AP. Washington and Cleveland. What are you doing here?
Yeah, a couple things to note. I actually like the over in this game, and my numbers are kind of right on that number, but I'm giving it a slight bump for a few reasons. The Cavs, they like to shoot a lot of threes. The Wizards, they like to give up a lot of open threes. A couple other things too is without Mobley in there, it's a great matchup for opposing power forwards. If you go and look at kind of the more recent stats, opposing power forwards have absolutely smashed this team. And I think a lot of that has to do, like Dean Wade's an okay defender, literally does nothing else, but he's not Evan Mobley. And obviously Mobley being out is just a huge hit to him. And I think that's why that specific statistic is popping out. Now, a couple other things. Kyle Kuzma, his price tag has come way down from what I think, we would call the season average, like mid 8K range. Over the last 2 games, and more recently, his usage and what he's doing on offense has been insane. You're talking 37, 40% usage rate, taking a ton of shots. He's going to have a fantastic matchup here. The chalk in this game is going to be Donovan Mitchell on the other side. I agree with that chalk. It's chalk I want to eat. I'm also good with Jarrett Allen. Bigs have absolutely smashed this Wizards team. If this game stays close, I think it's going to be due to Kyle Kuzma having a big game. I think matchup-wise, I think he's the guy that could be a problem for them. And so 7.9 is a very fair price tag. I know there's a lot of risk on the Wizards side because the rotations are, at times, tough to trust, but I love the spot for Kyle Kuzma, 7.9. Denny Avdia has been playing very well over the last few games too. I think Wes Unseld Jr. is starting to find a rotation that he is somewhat comfortable with. Now, the second I say that, things will probably change, and I'll end up, biting my tongue on that one. But the guy I feel confident with is Kyle Kuzma at 7.9. So, again, on this slate, there's a lot of really good plays. We're going to talk about some chalk later on in the slate too, but just thinking about leveraging early game stacks, or if you're going away from like a Giannis type build, the way I would do it is because I like Donovan Mitchell, I like Jarrett Allen, but and if so, how do I fit Kyle Kuzma into that build? So if I was playing an early stack and if I was playing that kind of back and forth game environment, which I think we could see, obviously the Wizards bring a lot of risks. But Kyle Kuzma would be my guy that I would want to find a way to target in this game. I should note, I got to be careful too. But Jordan Poole, the price tag is low. I don't know if we can go there. I think the rotation is just so volatile. and the guy is Cheeks. But I got to mention that he's back in that range where, I mean, look, like DraftKings, what are you doing? He was 7-8 against Atlanta last game, and now he's 6-4. The price under adjustment there has just been absolutely insane.
It feels like DraftKings hit like a big button on player adjustments for pricing between the last slate and this one, because a bunch of players moved more than they typically do. I agree with you on Kuzma, Allen. I like Mitchell, Mangone, and I mean, if you want to get weird on this game and get out to an early lead, Jordan Poole is 6,400. I don't hate it, and even Tyus Jones playing a little bit better, and his minutes seem a little bit more secure. You could see a good game here. I mean, it's a 240 total. You can get most of the stars onto your team if you can find some value. I don't love the early stack game, but this one a little bit enticing to me. Your thoughts here, Mangone, Cleveland, and Washington?
Yeah, like I always say with Kyle Kuzma, like he's 7'9", like the upside's there at the price. I don't need to get there, but I understand the floor is rough. I don't need to on this slate, though. I get it. If you wanted to stack it up, or you could. We talk about not like you don't need game stacks, but I will say with the Wizards, if you want to like full on get there, sometimes that does matter with them a little bit. I don't hate the Tyus Jones call, not in on the Jordan Poole call, but I get it. I haven't really been on Jordan Poole much, so I've missed the games where he's done well and haven't been on the games where he's been really bad. So I'm just out on Jordan Poole here. For the Cleveland side, the real big talking points are how do you handle Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen on this slate, right? And a big decision point is Tyrese Halliburton and Donovan Mitchell lock in the early game, right? So if you lock yourself into two of those guys, you can lock yourself into both. Do you have enough value to lock yourself into both, right? Or maybe you're waiting on some value to come and then it never does, right? So that is a big decision point that's going to come up. And of course, if Middleton's ruled out, well, then you'd want to consider getting to Giannis, and that would be another big decision point where there's three key stars locking very early. So let me at least mention that because I think that's very important. If I had to rank these stars right now, I think for me, I would obviously I can't really rank Giannis, but if you're telling me gun in my head, right, I got to pick Mitchell or I got to pick Halliburton in this spot. I think I'm leaning Mitchell right now, as crazy as that sounds. I just think I like the savings that I'm currently getting. Now, the decision could change if I just get enough value where it's just easy to get Halliburton. Also, it's nice to be able to put Donovan Mitchell at shooting guard, which sometimes is a rougher spot to roster. But all in all, I'm in on Donovan Mitchell today. I think I prefer him over Halliburton if I have to pick one. Jared Allen at 7'8". I don't mind him, but I do think the price is getting up there, and I think he could easily still keep smashing at the tag. The matchup is good. We always talk about it. Centers against Washington absolutely destroy. When I run my stuff on FanDuel, which I have ran it, let's see how much Jared Allen I got in the base run, because you normally get a lot. I did not get as much because he's 8.7K, but he's someone I might even up and just disagree with on FanDuel just because the stocks are really key over there, and the stocks you could get against Washington is so big. So I rank it Mitchell 1, Allen 2, then it's LeVert 3 and Max Struss 4. But LeVert and Max Struss are really last guys in. They're not really guys I'm prioritizing. When I run MME, I don't want 50% of them, but I wouldn't mind having them mixed and match throughout my lineup. So that's kind of the overall takeaway from this game, and I think we can move on to the next window of games.
So hey, real quick.
Go ahead.
I got to mention one last play real quick, and actually shout out to Bogarts. He would consider this guy. He would call him a thought, is what they call him. But Sam Merrill, a little value off the bench. So my one thing with Sam Merrill, if you're not playing Donovan Mitchell, I would consider Sam Merrill, because if the game blows out or something like that, the second unit's going to cook, and the Wizards give up a ton of open 3-point looks, and Sam Merrill's been red hot from deep. So he'd be the one guy. I think he's 3-4 on DraftKings. So if you're MMEing, he's definitely a deep value tournament play. But I just had to mention that since it's the Wizards. My
only argument against it, AP, I just want to mention, because I think this is super important. If he is getting any ownership because we're struggling for value, just don't do it. Like I
agree with that. I
think we need to mention it, because it's one of, like, for instance, I was talking to Glock, and he told me he's making fun of me for making Brook Lopez my play of the day the other day, and he didn't get ownership, right? And it was fine. I understood maybe not wanting to play him as much at that point. But if Sam Merrill's low owned, I understand it and get it. But if he's high owned, you just find other values on a 10 game. I think it's important.
I'm seeing Merrill projected closer to 20% ownership on some, which
that's what I'm getting.
20% would be egregious. But
Correct. But what can happen?
he could get there against the Wizards, though.
I don't think he's going to get to 20%, but if he does, I would be upset if he was on my team. I would say that.
DC, what could happen though is like the other night we talked about this. We really liked Ish Smith, and we thought like maybe the news wouldn't hit in time. And then what happened was ownership changed a ton, and then Ish Smith was like 35%, and it took away from that mid-tier build that we talked about. And actually, the winning team, it was funny. It was the two things I talked about, but I didn't combine them together. Is I said Giannis is the best stud if we get enough value, which we did. But the funny part was, I said the balanced build is what would win, and what won was Giannis with a bunch of 5K guys to 7K and not going up to the 8 and 9K options.
Well, didn't Ish Smith and Nick Smith both suck in that game? I think
they didn't like. I think
kill you, but
Nick Smith was bad, but Ish Smith didn't kill you. But Ish Smith wasn't on the winner because those 5K to 7K guys, they all hit those nice like mid-tier like ceiling performances, and then that was perfect to pair it with Giannis because you didn't need a second stud with Giannis. So the bills can change. So you have to think about that. If Sam Merrill's going to be 5%, sure, that punt could easily make sense. But if he's going to be 20, I want to see 1/5 of the field just get destroyed.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's mentioned him. The last play I'll mention, though, Karis LeVert's been really good in 3 of the last 5 games, 40+ in 3 of the last 5. He's 6,400. And he's kind of in that Brook Lopez bucket for me of guys who can give you 40+ in that 6K range. I don't think many people will play him coming off the bench, but they just don't have a lot for playmakers. And, of course, I mean, this is Washington, right? He could absolutely get cooking against the, Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, whoever else Washington throws out there. So I do like Karis LeVert a little bit. I probably wouldn't play him, with Donovan Mitchell, but I do think he's an interesting play for a low-owned chance at 40+ fantasy points. All right, we'll move on to the only game in the 7:30 Eastern time window. It is OKC Atlanta. Anybody that watched that OKC Boston game last night, that was fantastic basketball. So OKC obviously on the back-to-back here. No big injury news from either side. A little bit surprised that nobody's popped up, at least questionable for OKC after yesterday, but so far, looks like they're all going to be in there. DeAndre Hunter does remain out for the Atlanta Hawks. We'll start with you, AP, OKC, and Atlanta. Another big total, 248.5. OKC favored by 1.
Yeah, so kind of a letdown spot here for OKC. I know our guy Big T was all over the Thunder getting the win over Boston last night. Great call. A lot of people bet that. Got a lot of money. Was talking to our guy Big T again today. We were talking about that game. It was an awesome game. OKC, the real deal. This team is incredible. They have such a bright future. I know we've talked about it on multiple shows. But this spot where, coming off a game where they played their starters heavy minutes and then had to travel to Atlanta, it is such a prime letdown spot. So I had to mention it. Both Big T and I actually like the Atlanta Hawks tonight. You can take the side or you can take it straight out money line. And for a few reasons too. Could OKC show? Yeah, I mean, they might just be built different and they could come out and absolutely ball out. But they were incredible, and especially from 3-point range, like 50% made threes. Like Josh Giddey was balling out last night. I mean, Shea was doing his thing. I just think it's a prime letdown spot. And then on the Hawks side, I mean, Jalen Johnson, I know he's projected to get a lot of ownership, and rightfully so. This guy is a stud. I think he's too cheap right now. He's playing 35+ minutes. He racks up the peripherals. He knows how to get rebounds, and I think he's going to make for a really strong play. The Trae Young, being 10-3 is much tougher because, and look, like we have Halliburton 10-2. We have Trae Young, then 10-3, and we have Donovan Mitchell, who is just like in such a good spot. I have Donnie Mitchell over all of those guys. Trae Young is interesting, but man, he's still sharing the backcourt, obviously, with DeJounte Murray. I definitely think, he's a fine tournament play. He gives you that nice tournament upside, and you typically see it against poor teams is the other thing. But I think this game actually falls under the total tonight. The Atlanta Hawks play with a lot of pace, but I think they come out. They get the win, And I think OKC just a little sluggish. The other thing that I think we see, and we see this all the time with OKC, is I think they open up the rotation a little bit. Since the starters had such heavy minutes against that Boston team, what you're going to see is Conrich Williams, maybe Isaiah Joe, Kaysen Wallace. These guys are going to get a little bit more run, maybe 2 or 3 more additional minutes. Does that mean that they're in play? I don't think so. I don't think that these are guys that you really want to consider. I just see OKC keeping their guys, trying to keep them kind of fresh, coming off that big win, tight rotation. I see them opening up just a little bit. So for me, it's Jalen Johnson, the guy that I have the most interest in. And when OKC opens up that the rotation, I like to be off of them. Josh Giddey at 5'9" just feels like such a trappy type play. I know put up a 42-piece last night against Boston, 36-piece against the Nets. I'm telling you, this guy, he's only playing like 25 minutes a game. There's a lot of risk there. Think about Chris Paul last night. He was mega chalk, like 60% owned, and extremely, definitely underwhelmed last night. So kind of a different play there, but the thought process is the same if we are getting ownership on Josh Giddey.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. I like that Hawks call. Maybe a little Hawks and under parlay call, I think could make some sense here. OKC maybe comes out a little bit slower after last night. I could see a little bit more defensive game. Obviously, it's not going to be super defensive with these two teams, but let's go to you, Mangone. OKC, Atlanta. What do you got for us?
Yeah, definitely a spot where, hey, Atlanta Hawks are on the slate, right? And when they're on the slate, we want to target them, right? They're one of the teams to look at. But OKC, it's always difficult to make the decision on it. But the problem is the ceilings are there, right? So if you're an MME player, you're definitely going to want to mix and match on these guys. I think it's some single entry 3-max stuff. You only play a couple lineups. I think it's easier to make some fades on these options. Another thing to mention with the forward position today is forward isn't great in my opinion. And if you lose the Chris Middleton play, I could see you easily just defaulting to a Jalen Williams, right? I think Jalen Williams at 7-3, he has a ceiling there. It's not my favorite play in the world, but I just see that as an easy, quick fix if you wanted. But of course, you'd probably want to get some other, plays on the Bucks that might help make that a little bit easier for your teams. But OKC, Jalen Williams is fine. SGA, really great pivot off of Halliburton and Mitchell at probably no ownership, right? I mean, how can you argue against that? Sure, he might see DeJounte Murray defense at times, but it's SGA. You could argue he's top 5 MVP this year. You could make. So I do think SGA is definitely in play as a tournament contrarian spend today. I don't mind Lou Dort at 5K. Minutes can be up and down at times. We know they can open up this rotation a bit, but I do think they're going to need him to guard some of these players on the Hawks. I think 5K is a good tag. And in these up and down games that can get a little sloppy because of the team total being high, those are good game environments for someone like Lou Dort. So I don't mind him as a cheap option. And then on the Atlanta side, I don't hate DeJounte Murray at 7-7. I just think the upside, it's there at the price. It's a safe play, a little bit of upside too. So I don't mind him. Jalen Johnson, I should mention him as well. 6.3K. The minutes are really strong on him right now. You could argue OKC, it's not a glamorous match to target just in general, but I just think the price is too good. And again, forward isn't great today at the moment, right? If you look at just that forward position, if you sort by it, you have Giannis at 11.9K. Then there's a huge drop, right? Then it's Scotty Barnes at 9K, Julius Randle, DeMar DeRozan. It's a lot of guys we're not super excited about. So naturally you just land to a lot of 6K guys as the forwards to play today. And I think that makes Jalen Johnson just one of those safe options that it might be a plug and play that I don't feel bad about, and just kind of getting in there and trying to find other ways to get different with my teams.
Makes sense to me with Jalen Johnson. He does look like one of the better plays on the slate, and just given the lack of value, it seems like you got to play sometimes one or two of the obvious values, right? You want to be careful which ones you pick, but it's hard to avoid all the chalk in NBA, and I don't even think you should. Jalen Johnson does.
I've really felt, and I feel pretty strong about this opinion, is when you have good forward values, I felt like Lou Dort was a good forward value. Herbert Jones, good forward value. I want to eat those plays and get those really safe minutes just because I feel like the risk reward isn't as important as at the center and the guard position, because I just feel like the volatility between a lot of the guards is a lot different than the forwards right now. And I felt that when running the Sims and everything too. Like, I don't know. I feel like I have a pretty good read on it, and I'm pretty confident in my take on it.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. We don't talk much about position scarcity, but maybe we should talk more about it because it is pretty important in the NBA. I mean, there's a billion centers and a billion point guards you can play every night. The forward value, though, is pretty scarce, so it makes total sense to get in on a guy like Johnson. Go ahead, AP.
One last nugget, when you think about defensively who the best guy is on OKC, Lou Dort, they're not going to put Lou Dort on Jalen Johnson. I mean, if anything, if like Trae Young's cooking, they're gonna throw him on Trae Young. And Porzingis and Tatum just smashed yesterday. So I like front courts against this OKC team. And I think Jalen Johnson is like the perfect guy. And normally, like with these guys that are projected to be like mega chalk, I'm always trying to like question the spot or at least like find some path off of it. I do think, even though he's kind of in that range where he could tilt you, but I think it's just such a smash play in this spot.
Another key point with that, AP, is like it's not only who's the chalk you're getting off, is what on earth is your alternative, right? Like sometimes you have to figure that out. And one way to figure it out is if there's chalk plays that you don't like, X them out, run the optimizer. And then when you see your teams, you're like, well, I don't like any of these. Well, maybe it's because you're Xing out the wrong pieces of chalk. You need to X out some different ones, right? So that's a really good exercise to do that. It's harder to do when you're further away from lock or closer to lock. So it's better to do it right now, right? If you have guys that are going to be chalky that you don't like, go in there, X them out and see what the teams look like, because you might be getting some ugly teams and you might not be comfortable with it.
Absolutely. We're on to the 8 Eastern time window. First game we'll talk about Toronto and Memphis. No big news in this one. Vince Williams going to be out for Memphis. Luke Kennard should come in and take some of those minutes. He's been out for a few games. Pretty low total in this one, 227. It is expected to be close. Memphis favored by 1. Obviously, Toronto had the big trade with OJ Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa going over to the Knicks in return for Barrett and Quickly, who both entered the starting lineup for Toronto. Quickly taking over the starting point guard role, was pretty solid in his debut for Toronto. Getting Toronto right, I think, with the new team, anytime a team makes a big change like that will be important. They've certainly priced him up, though. 6,400 now for Quickly AP. That's too much for me, and honestly, I'm not super high on this game in general. Am I missing anything from Toronto and Memphis?
Yeah, a lot more mouths to feed on the Toronto side. We had a lot more interest on the last slate, and a lot of that was due to pricing. I mean, Quickly was $5K. Now he's 6'4". RJ Barrett was 5'9". Now he's 6'3". I will say, I believe RJ Barrett did run into some foul trouble against the Cavs. I mean, I think he's going to play. I think he's definitely a guy that they can run out there and play a ton of minutes. And, we have a nice rotation here on the Raptors side, but it's a lot more mouths to feed. And, Jakob Poeltl, I'm looking at this, and I know I've been on him a few times, 34, 37 minutes the last 2 games. But, against Cleveland, you needed that against Jared Allen with how well he is playing. I mean, Jared Allen has just been a beast. We talked about it. Smash spot, obviously, against the Wizards. Against Memphis, they could go so many different ways. I'm not convinced that Bismack Biyombo is going to, be the guy that's going to get 27, 28 minutes, out there. I mean, it made sense yesterday trying to get some size or just some bodies on Wemby for Wemby's 26 minutes that he plays. But in this matchup, I could see it going a different way. Like I could see them playing Santi Aldama off the bench, a guy that they like, good value. I mean, Xavier Tillman really isn't playing much. So it's Santi. And if this game goes small, the Raptors, like the one risk with leaning on a guy like Poeltl is they now have the pieces to also go small and to match teams. Siakam's been playing the 5. He can play the 5 very well, especially in small ball lineups. So I'd be very hesitant. And then you have Gary Trent or Dennis Schroeder to go along with Quickly, RJ Barrett, and these guys. So the Raptors matchup-wise can go many different directions now. So I'm not convinced on Pirtle, even though even though the minutes over the last 2 games have been nice. If that inflates his ownership, I don't mind going the other way and just betting that this game goes a little bit smaller, getting more of Santi Aldama off the bench. Maybe even David Roddy could enter the lineup, and then Luke Kennard would be the other guy as well. So talk to my Memphis guy too. He said Ja Morant is good to go. My problem though with Ja is I just look at already, and I'm not even mentioning some of the point guards that we're going to talk about, but Donovan Mitchell is way up there. Halliburton, Trae Young, the position is loaded. I just don't know if I can go to Ja in this spot. Especially with the what I heard is he's not hurt, but man, I don't think this is a spot where they're going to push him beyond what he can do. So not a game that I'm too high on outside of a few value plays here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I get the points with Pirtle, but at least he has the minutes upside now, Mangone, right? We've seen it 2 games in a row. Of course, we don't know what exactly Memphis is going to do, but just knowing that Pirtle could be out there 37, 38 minutes when before it wasn't really an option has to put him in play at 6,100. Not a bad matchup. He's always been a good point per minute guy. It's just minutes haven't necessarily been there. So, it kind of depends on how chalky he is, but I'm not seeing him with too crazy of a number right now. He's probably my favorite play in this game. What do you see here between Toronto and Memphis, Travis?
Yeah, I agree. So if you look, the rotation they played was a lot tighter, and they played Thad Young for 2 minutes, but
Thad and Boucher barely played.
Yeah, they're not going to start playing Thad Young, right? You know what I mean? I do think Boucher could gain more minutes at some point, right? He played 12 minutes. So you could see him get pushed to 4 extra more or something like that. But the point here is I think Jakob Poeltl's minutes are kind of here to stay. I'm not saying it's 37 every night, but I think we're done with the Jakob Poeltl 22-minute nights. I just think those are gone. So I think he's a good play at this price. I think the price is just going to continue to rise right now. So 6-1, I like him. I think he's in the conversation. Pascal Siakam at 8-2. I think he is still a good play today in this spot. Again, look at the front court. He's just going to have to play a lot of minutes right now. So I like the spot for him as well. Scotty Barnes at 9K. I don't love the 9K tag as much as I like the 8-2 on Siakam. I think that's a little bit better. And I do think with having Emmanuel quickly in the starting lineup, I do think that is going to pull away from Scotty Barnes' ball handling a little bit, right? And sure, it might pull from Pascal's, but the thing I think that still helps Pascal is because Jakob Poeltl, when he's not on the court, you're going to get the Pascal at the 5 minutes. And I think those are going to be really key and valuable for him. And I think the production is going to be really good. If you told me Jakob Poeltl was only playing 28 minutes somehow tonight, I'd want a lot more Pascal because I think that's going to unlock more Pascal at the 5 minutes. So, I think that's important there. And then all these other guards, I'm not super excited about. Quickly's kind of expensive. Schroeder, Trent Jr., I just don't need to get there. So it's really the bigs there on the Toronto side of the ball. When it comes to the Memphis side of the ball, I think you have to consider some options here, right? Bismack Biyombo at 3.8K as a cheap value because I think they're going to play bigger. I think he's in play. Santi Aldama is clearly one of the big value plays to discuss on this slate. What do you do with him as chalk? I'd rather play him at power forward than center. I just think center is always a really good position, and I think I'd rather kind of get him in there at the power forward position if I can. So I think Santi Aldama is definitely in the conversation. And then when it comes with Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson, and Bane, at Bane and Ja Morant's prices, I'm not super excited. Jaren Jackson, I do think this is a spot where I do worry about the foul trouble a little bit more. I think the ceiling's there at 7.5, and in MME, it's fine keeping him, but my single entry 3 max up, there's no way I'm touching Jaren Jackson, Bane, or Ja Morant. It's really just looking at the cheap options in Santi Aldama and Bismack Biyombo.
I wasn't aware of this, but seeing Aldama is one of the more popular plays on the slate. Is that
real quick on that note, because I just saw that too, and I'm like, holy crap,
right.
That's it's insane. He went off, and people are going to see that, but it was against the Spurs, the best man, all these punt values go off the reserve players go off against.
It's not Memphis is out of players and Aldama's locked into minutes either. They got plenty of bodies. So
you could see David Roddy get more run too over who knows what Jacobs is going to do.
Conchar,
yeah.
the length could bother him too. I mean, I don't hate the value, but like I want to see as things like shift, like if he's going to be like 50, 60%, like let me figure out an alternative and see if I like that alternative more. And maybe this requires us to not punt the forward position as much and maybe living in the mid tier with more forward options, right? I don't know. It's something to definitely think about because he's going to be chalky.
He also like was on the court when Wemby was off. Like he had like the nut rotation for like not the hardest like Spurs matchup. So keep those things in mind.
Right or wrong, I'll say this. Ain't a chance in hell I'm playing 50% owned Santi Aldama on a 10-game slate. Won't be on my lineups if that number holds anywhere close to true as we get closer to lock. All right, we'll move on to the next game on the slate, Pelicans and my Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota favored by 6 here. No huge injury notes. Trey Murphy is questionable. And then looks like pretty much everybody else should be in this one. 222 total. Minnesota favored by 6. We've obviously talked a lot about Minnesota's defense this year. It remains elite. And that usually means there's not too many plays you want to go to on the other side, especially when they're fully healthy. This is another game, Mangone, where I'm not seeing a ton here to love on New Orleans, Minnesota. Not that there aren't plays you could go to. You're going to get everything here, I think, pretty low owned, but I don't see anything that's really popping for me. What about you with New Orleans and Minnesota?
Yeah, so the Murphy news does matter a lot. I think you can make a case that, like, if he's out, Herb Jones is 5'5", but, like, dude, it's definitely a good spot where they're going to need him throughout the game to, like, really be on the court a lot, in my opinion. Sure, could he get in foul trouble? Yes, but I think at 5'5", I like other forwards, but I think it's something I would definitely be thinking about a little bit for sure here. I don't hate Rudy Gobert in this spot. I do think they're going to need his size, and against Valanciunas, he's someone he could absolutely destroy. But I don't know if I want to spend 7-2 at center today. It doesn't seem like that's the route I want to go, but I think it's in play for sure. When it comes to FanDuel, let me pull that up because I haven't talked enough about FanDuel today. But Herb Jones is 5K over there. I think that price is really good, especially for the stock upside that he could have. And of course, Ant Edwards is almost always in play as like a contrarian spend. But I would, if I do that, I think I would want to do it because Ant's not even shooting guard. He's only shooting guard eligible. Yeah, I don't think I'd do it then. I think I'd just rather eat Donovan Mitchell and move on with the Herb Jones matchup. So, yeah, all in all, it's really looking at Herb Jones. And if you wanted a contrarian Rudy Gobert spend, I think you could get away with it, but it's not my favorite. Herb Jones is really the main guy I'm looking at right now.
It's fair enough. Yeah, not a ton for me either with Pelicans and Timberwolves. What about UAP? Anything for us in this game?
No, I mean, some of the pricing on the Pelicans side, it feels trappy in this matchup. Timberwolves' best defense in the NBA right now. Pretty sure, like, by a decent margin. They've just been incredible. And at both sides, we have very good defenders on both sides. Jaden McDaniels, individual very good defender, and Herb Jones, obviously, on the other side. So when we're talking the studs, when we're talking Ant Edwards, Brandon Ingram, in these guys, I just with both sides pretty healthy, I would be very cautious going there. So I believe I have this game as almost a full fade. I mean, Jose Alvarado has been really good off the bench. You're going to need the stocks though from him, and I don't trust it, and I want to prioritize the guard position anyways because there's a lot of really good plays at the guard spot. So. I don't think I will be getting to a guy like him.
Yeah, me neither. Let's move on to the final game here in this 8 p.m. window. It is Brooklyn and Houston. Houston favored by 4.5 in this one, 221 total. Injury news for Houston, pretty significant. Dylan Brooks remains out, and Tari Eason, who's obviously been an important player for Houston coming off the bench, he is out. Only injury news we're waiting on for Brooklyn is Dennis Smith Jr. Not a huge impact whether he plays or not. Let's talk about Houston and Brooklyn. We'll start with UAP. What are you doing with these two teams?
Yeah, so matchup-wise, for some reason, these small forwards against the Nets. Like the first time I mentioned this was Denny a few slates ago. It was when the Nets when the Nets were playing the Wizards. Denny Avdia went off. Before that, it was Chris Middleton. He went off. Bojan had a good game against them. Even Klay Klay Thompson, who is struggling, put up almost a 40-piece against this Nets team. So, we like Mikal as like an individual defender, one-on-one guy, but to be a good defense, it comes down to team basketball. So this team is struggling against opposing small forwards. It puts Jason Tate squarely right in that spot. We'll see. This is a guy, again, that very much like a Lou Dort, comes with a lot of risk, not a high usage type of guy, but I'm going to lean on the matchup here. It hasn't failed me yet, and we should get decent minutes from Jason Tate. The other thing, too, is I'm curious to see what you guys have to think, but Tari Eason off the bench he has been a usage monster. I mean, if you just go and look at it, his usage rate when he's out there is like 26, 27%, and he's just a fantasy point per minute machine. And with him out, I mean, that's going to be a lot of, one, we should get a condensed rotation, but that's going to be, opportunity that's going to go elsewhere. I think it's a Şengün type of night. I love this matchup. Bigs have done very well against this Nets team. Şengün put up almost a 50-piece in 27 minutes against Detroit. The Nets, their coach may have lost this team. Maybe it was due to resting all those guys in that one game where they probably shouldn't have done it. But it just seems like this team maybe quit on Jacques Vaughn is the coach's name. So, and then on the Rockets side, we should get a condensed rotation. So Jason Tate, Alperen Şengün, and then Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, two guys that you could definitely consider in this spot. And I don't even mind going back to a little Jalen Green, but I think I'm going to lean on the value here. We talked about position scarcity. It's been a good theme on the show. Jason Tate can put him right there in that small forward spot. He's going to be a starter. As we said, there's a lot of chalk reserve plays on the slate. Jason Tate, starter tonight with multiple pieces out. I think he makes for a good play.
I'm going to disagree with you, AP. I'm throwing Mr. Jason Tate in the Santi Aldama bad chalk bucket. Mangone, break the tie for us on Jason Tate and talk to us about Brooklyn and Houston.
I'm kind of on DC's side, I think. So
I'm showing far more ownership on Santi Aldama versus.
I'm still seeing 20 on Jason Tate, and that's too much for me.
I got you.
It's still a lot, and also these ownerships could really change for sure with news, so keep that in mind. But I do think that Tate is not if he's going to be chalky, I'm not super excited about him. Like I said, I talk about those good forward values. I think Jalen Johnson is. I don't think Jason Tate is exactly that. But to be fair, AP's playing the matchup, and hey, I didn't like Denny the other day, and he crushed. But I don't know if I'm going to get there with him. I don't know if I like this game just in general. I think it's one I'm going to do my best to kind of stay away from. Tari Eason, I will mention that the usage has been really good, like we had talked about, obviously, and everything. But that usage has to go somewhere, right? So where is it going to go now? I think that's a interesting talking point to kind of try and figure out here.
Not to Jason Tate. That's where it's not going to go.
I mean, that's literally what I just said, though. It has to go somewhere.
But it doesn't go Tate. I don't think it goes to Tate.
Then we should be jamming in Şengün, because Şengün is going to absolutely smash this matchup.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who it could go to, because it's not easy for sure. Could it go to Jabari? I think it goes to Jabari Smith. I really think he's the guy. We've seen him without. I'm trying to remember which games Easton was out. I think it's Jabari. So at 6'8", he's someone that's not popping right now. I'm going to consider bumping him up a little bit more, because I feel pretty confident it's Jabari Smith. So Jabari Smith will be the guy that I'm going to kind of gravitate towards at 6.8K. I don't mind the Şengün idea for sure. I think he obviously could absolutely smash in this spot. I know DC has been on Jalen Green a little bit, and he's been playing a lot better. I don't hate the Jalen Green idea, but I'm who got 41 minutes without was it Tate or was it Jabari?
Jabari. Yeah, that's not Jason Tate. I might be with you guys. Screw Jason Tate. I might be joining your guys' side.
I played in that game. I think it's Jabari. Jabari's the guy. So I'm going to
Jabari and Jalen Green are the two guys I'm looking at. I think Şengün is fine as well. I also don't think you have to go to this game, though. I know Jason Tate's. Yeah.
On a 10 game, I don't think it's necessary. And to AB's point, the Pelicans were smashing last night, right? They were smashing, and then the game died. And I think you could see that again. This Rockets team is really good, and this Nets team is not playing good basketball right now. And I think Mikal Bridges right now, I'm staying away from him here too.
All right, we'll move on to the next window of games. There's 2 games in the 8:30 Eastern time window. First one we'll talk about Portland and Dallas. Dallas favored by 12 in this one. Total sitting at 238. Portland, a lot of guys questionable. Simons, Reith, Kamara, Moses Brown, all questionable. We already have DeAndre Ayton ruled out for Portland. So, yeah, a lot to be decided on who they're going to play tonight. And then on the Dallas side, Maxi Kleber out and Dante Exum also out. Obviously, he's been a pretty important player for them over the last few weeks. We'll start with you on this one, AP. Portland and Dallas. What do you got?
Yeah, this will be an interesting one to I mean, the Mavericks, they're definitely healthier now. They have a lot of mouths or a lot of guys that can get playing time here. I'm curious to see what the starting lineup looks like. We obviously know it's going to be Luka, Kyrie, and then Derek Lively and Derek Jones. And I think that the last starter for Exum could be a couple pieces. We should have asked our guy Glock, the Mavs whisper on this, but I think it could be either like Josh Green. I think he could definitely be in line for starting role. Maybe Grant Williams as well. I think the Mavericks just smashed this Portland team. Obviously, a lot of news to wait for on the Portland side. I don't trust the Portland front court. Like Moses Brown, if he starts, nope, not going there. Scoot Henderson has been balling. I will say that. We need Simons out, but if Simon plays, it's just this backcourt is a mess as well. So I pretty much am under on the Portland side unless like everyone that is questionable gets ruled out, then obviously it becomes more intriguing. Then I would consider guys like Scoot, but obviously we don't have that news right now, so it's kind of a sit and wait. And then it's, you know, if you're trying to spend up to the different studs, I still prefer Giannis. Giannis priced very similarly to Luka. I love the matchup for Giannis. I just think with Kyrie out there, I mean, I just think this game could be over by halftime, and they shut things down. So I'm under on this team. I think the Mavs smash.
Yeah, I'm with you. No Giannis or no Luka for me tonight. It'll be Giannis if I'm trying to spend up in that 11K range, most likely. What about you, Mangone? Luka, this Portland news, is it worth waiting on and kind of building around, or how are you approaching this Portland and Dallas game?
Yeah, so I'll just start real quick with Luka. Like, Luka's a great contrarian spend. If the game's close, he's going to crush, right? Like, he'll absolutely dominate. But, like, not someone I want to be super overweight. I know it doesn't take much to get overweight on him if you wanted to, but just don't completely ignore that, because everyone is, like, the build today is spending up for guards like Mitchell and Halliburton, but you don't need that much more to get up to Luka, right? It's not completely flipping the bill, but it's still like, again, Luka can easily nuke, right? So just don't ignore him. Next up, let's talk about how to handle this situation with the news. So there's Moses Brown, Kamara, Duop Reith, they're all questionable. Simons is the big one, right? I think Simons is important because if he ends up being out, Scoot Henderson at 6'3" does have a ceiling at the price. Malcolm Brogdon at 7'8". I don't mind him. I do think at 7'8", like, it is pricey, but I would want him out, right? I need Simons to be out. That would be super important. Jeremy Grant at 7'3", I think he has a ceiling at the price tag. So one of those other guys that I think you could make a case for, but the floor is a little bit low. And then Jabari Walker, everyone wanted to play him, and he found a way to get there in garbage time. If you told me a lot of these guys were out, like Brown, Kamara, Reith, at least like 2, I think it would bring him back in the conversation a little bit more, but he's not in the conversation right now. The news is really important with how to handle it, but it's not news that I'm backloading for, right? I always talk about, hey, this is news I want to prepare for a backload. If I fall into this news and it works out, great, but I'm not planning for this at all.
Yeah, makes sense. Portland and Dallas, 3 more games to talk about before we do. Just a reminder, hit the like button if you haven't done so yet. We're here free of charge, completely free of charge, each and every day breaking down NBA for you guys. All we ask is that you help us out a little bit. So hit the like button if you haven't yet done so. We do appreciate that. Hit the subscribe so you don't miss any content here on the YouTube channel. And then if you do want to join Run Pure Sports, we do have a promo code running right now. New year, new year will get you 15% off your first monthly or weekly payment. Let's get those likes up so we can do the plays of the day at the end of the show. Otherwise, we can put them in the Discord for the members. All right, let's get to the next game on the slate. It is a game, I think, with the lowest total of the entire night, sitting at 220 between Chicago and New York. The Knicks favored by 9. Obviously, the Knicks involved in that trade with Toronto. We saw OG's first game played. I think he fouled out in that game or was close to it anyway. Still played. Yeah, he did foul out. Still played 35 minutes. I was looking at the rotation, AP, and I think he would have played 40 plus if it wasn't for the fouls, which is about what I would expect from him pretty much every game under Tom Thibodeau. I like him. I really like Jalen Brunson, who I think is going to just absolutely run the show with Barrett and Emmanuel quickly out of town. And then Chicago side, of course, they've been down some guys. Still without Zach LaVine. This might be the last game without him. Nikola Vucevic also out. It's been kind of strange. I did jump off the Kobe White train at the right time, but his downfall has coincided a little bit, weirdly, with Vucevic being out and Drummond being in. Kind of think the offense has just not been the same with the paint clogger Drummond in there. Obviously, Vucevic can space the floor much better. So, yeah, low total here, but I kind of like these Knicks guys that are left. I'll also note this game is on ABC tonight, which I don't know if you can really project more than 40 minutes.
Why are they doing that to the Bulls? Is it on? Yeah, it's on ABC.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Which the poor Bulls, man.
Makes me like Brunson even more. And I don't post many picks in our bets chat on the Discord, but I have hit on the few NBA bets I've posted. They've all been assist props, and I did post one in there today. Jalen Brunson, 10-plus assists on DraftKings is plus 320. I hit that one myself. Like that one a lot. Had 23 potential assists. I think a season high, playing for the first time without Quickly and Barrett in that last game. AP, talk to me, Chicago and New York.
Yeah, if you like pain, if you like being driven to drink, join me on the sides and totals streets in the NBA. It's it can be very fun. You go, it's very streaky. I'll say that. It's very, very streaky. It makes you question your models and all of that. You just got to stay disciplined, stay with it. But the problem with the Bulls right now, so Kobe White, I think, still dealing with that wrist injury, and then I think he rolled an ankle yesterday. He's going to play tonight, but I don't trust it. And then Pat Williams,
he's out of gas a little bit. They're playing so many minutes. I don't know.
They literally. I've been watching this, and they're such a the most simple team and boring team right now to defend. It makes it tough. It's teams just throw the sink at DeMar DeRozan, and if Drummond can't get it done, they're just stuck. They're forced. Literally, Ayo Dosunmu is historically a low usage player. Okay, go look at his usage over the past few games. He is being forced to take a lot of shots. Now he entered halftime yesterday after the second quarter with no fantasy points. He did all of his work in the second half. Finally saw the ball go through the bucket. I mean, man, he's a tough play, but the minutes are going to be there. Javon Carter was a nice spark for them off the bench. I haven't even looked at projections on this game, but I kind of think Pat Williams sits, and it makes this spot really potentially interesting from a value standpoint. I think it was Dalen Terry that played really well last night, and then Sinogo, is that how you say his name? He's the one that got all the blowout run. He's a big boy down there clogging up the paint, but again, that's blowout only. So yeah, I think Terry is a really interesting play, and then Javon Carter was a nice spark off the bench as well. Hit his first few threes and then went ice cold. But look, what they lack right now is that ability to stretch things out. They have no ability to do that because no one is afraid of Ayo Dosunmu. Even DeMar DeRozan, he's not three-point shooter. Alex Caruso's been cold. They have no threat from range. And so that makes them very easy to defend. And now you have OG Anunoby that's out there too. Like, throw him on DeMar DeRozan. It has to be these peripheral pieces that get it done. That's why I'm interested in the Javon Carters, the Ayo DeSumo, those type of plays. I'm off of Kobe White here. Alex Caruso, kind of a stocks guy. My one counter argument against the Knicks side of this game is I don't see how the Bulls are going to keep it close. I really don't. If they do, you're going to have a big game from some of these like secondary pieces on the Bulls side, or maybe DeMar DeRozan just finds that mid-range game. I don't see that happening against OG in this spot. So I'm under on the Knicks side, and I have a slight interest in some of the fringe value pieces for the Bulls.
Yeah, pretty brutal spot for DeRozan going up against Anunoby, who played for the new team at home on national television. I mean, you got to imagine, Mangone, OG is going to be as locked in as he possibly could be on defense with the DeMar DeRozan assignment. I'm completely off DeRozan, so much so that I was kind of looking to try to find another Bulls player to play, but I don't know. Hard to trust these guys. It does get a little bit easier if Patrick Williams sits. Still somewhat questionable to me. I think Terry at 3.3, maybe some value I'd be willing to dip my toes in if Williams is out. What about you, Mangone, Chicago, and the New York Knicks?
Yeah, so keep in mind the OG matchup, the last matchup he was in against Minnesota, and that wasn't an easy spot, right? I think OG is a really good play. I talk about some of these forwards I just want to key in on and kind of just keep a tighter pool on the forwards. He's one of those guys. DiVincenzo's on that list, but I think he's more of the second tier guy. I think OG is the tier one for sure, one that I want to definitely get exposure to. And of course, a lot of people will want to, but I just think he's a really good play. I think he's good chalk. So I like him here in this spot. I don't think Josh Hart is a bad contrarian play that you can mix in there too. But I do think OG is definitely going to pull away from Hart a little bit here as the season kind of moves along. I didn't mind your Jalen Brunson tournament play. He is 8-9 now, which is starting to get a little pricier, but he is a contrarian option. It's going to be really low owned. And then the Chicago side, I know you talked about the idea of hey, I was looking for someone else to get to besides DeRozan. Listen, Andre Drummond is just soaking up all the usage at this point. The prices have gone up. I just don't really have any interest in the Bulls right now. Could you talk me into some Bulls if you had Patrick Williams out? Yeah, maybe some of these other values would get unlocked, but I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
I'll say this about Brunson. Put up 45 fantasy points in that first game against Minnesota with this new team. But it could have been a lot better. 5 for 23 from the field, 1 for 9 from three-point range, had the 14 assists, season high, and played 41 minutes. They really don't have another point guard that they trust. Miles McBride got the 6 or 7 minutes when Brunson was sitting. I think he's going to play big minutes right now for this team, especially on national television. Really high on Brunson. He'll be just a couple percent owned too. So if you want to join the Brunson train, I will be riding it tonight. 2 more games to talk about. Detroit and Utah up next. This one has a pretty big total. 241. Utah favored by 8.5. Out for Detroit are Monty Morris, Isaiah Stewart. We've seen AP, Cade Cunningham. Remember we were on it kind of early in the season. You just couldn't get it going, but the usage, the minutes, all that stuff, all the peripheral stats were there. And in these last few games, he's really turned it on. They did get blown out by the Rockets in their last game, but Cade still had a very, very big role while he was in there. I think he's interesting. I think Jalen Duren's interesting for Detroit. And Utah, you got to consider them too, going up against obviously a very, very bad Detroit team. So 2 awful teams here, but pretty good DFS game, I think, AP. What do you see, Detroit and Utah?
Yeah, this is the one it's getting a lot of. When I ran those base builds, we were getting a lot of exposure to this game. And I'm always a little nervous, a little cautious, a little hesitant in doing so because of, the Jazz, we've talked about it. It seems like every show that the Jazz are on, they're running a very wide rotation. Very few players are seeing over 30 minutes, but you're still seeing from a pricing standpoint, it still puts a few of these guys in play. So it's really interesting what DraftKings has done with the pricing in these games. And the last time, so these 2 teams just played in Detroit, I know I posted the charts in Discord, in the Run Pure Sports Discord, but Jaden Ivey smashed. I think Cade Cunningham also smashed at home. Yeah, a 56 piece. Like the backcourt against the Jazz with the size of Cade Cunningham and then Jaden Ivey, just from what he brings defensively. He was good offensively in that game, but then he adds the ability to rack up, steals and blocks as well. And if you just look at the Jazz, they're rotating in Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, one of those guys, and Keontae George. Like they're going to have these guards out on the court, pretty much all game. So it's just a boost for a guy like Jaden Ivey. They're going to need his defense in there if this game stays close. And no one's going to play Jaden Ivey. I don't see anyone playing him at all. So he's a very interesting tournament play. Played 35 minutes, 49 piece. Usage was good. His rotation very similar if the game stays close. And I think, like they got their win, and then the Rockets have just been good at home, and they had their number. Cade was ice cold, especially the game just got away from them. So I think the Pistons kind of rebound here and put up a good fight. I'm wondering if we can trust, can we trust Alec Burks and what he's been doing off the bench? We talked about it a few games ago when they made this adjustment. They needed Alec Burks, a veteran. They needed his usage and, his offensive ability to run that second unit. And so it's earned him a little bit more run, right in the 22 to 25 minute range. In the matchup, I don't mind it. But again, if he's going to be mega chalk, it comes with a lot of risk in a spot like this. As far as attacking the Jazz, I don't believe, let me look real quick. Yeah, so the biggest change here is because we saw, I think it was Walker Kessler and Kelly Olynyk. We saw the bigs for the Jazz smash in this matchup, but the Pistons did not have Jalen Duren in that spot. They're still playing Marvin Bagley. So matchup wise, a little bit tougher there in the front court, but Walker Kessler, he's 5'4". Kelly Olynyk, they're 5'2". I think they're multi-entry plays only. Like if you're playing the 15, 150, you just kind of work these guys in. Again, Lauri Markkanen, I liked him last slate, but his run got cut short for I can't remember who. I think it was Fontecchio that was cooking. So there's just a lot of uncertainty and a lot of variance and unpredictability in this Jazz rotation right now. So it just brings in a lot of risk. But Jordan Clarkson had a triple-double, I think, in 27 minutes last game against Dallas. I could see him or Colin Sexton. One of those guys is going to go off. Who is it? I don't know, DC. I don't know. It's going to be one of them, though. So good luck figuring that out. Flip a coin, do whatever it is. But I definitely think one of those guys is going to go off. And I could see someone in the front court going off. But it's just a very difficult rotation to predict right now.
Even against Detroit, I don't really want to mess with Utah with their whole team healthy. You just don't know what they're going to do. It feels like a guessing game. And on a 10-game slate, I feel like there are safer spots, Mangone. But I do like two guys for Detroit. I think Detroit's got two building blocks. Cade Cunningham, one. Jalen Duren, the other. We've seen Duren's minutes come way up. I know if you look at the last game, it doesn't look like it, but they got blown out. But he still played well in that game, or at least fantasy-wise. And against Utah, I think, Duren, they're willing to play him 35 to 40 minutes now if the game's close and he's playing well and out of foul trouble. I know that's, a lot of caveats, but there's not that many centers that you can say that about. He's super talented. He's 6,900. I like him quite a bit. And I like pairing him with Cade Cunningham because I think, Detroit plays well. It's probably those two guys doing a lot of it. And I think their minutes are tied together somewhat as well. So those are the two guys I'm on for Detroit. Pretty much the only two guys in this game I like. What about you, Mangone? What do you see, Detroit, Utah?
Yeah, I definitely don't mind Cade. Cade is a good tournament play. Again, a lot of people are going to play Mitchell and Halliburton, right? And if that's the case, I assume then you're going to see someone like Cade Cunningham just kind of get squeezed a little bit, right? And I think Cade is a good play. You want to have him in MME formats. I like the Duren call. And another thing I like about Duren is he's playing Utah. And I kind of want him in matchups where he's going to be towards the rim more, right? He's not going to be pulled away. I think it does, in general, just help him out. He's a super talented player. Sure, do I worry about Walker Kessler's defense? Yes, but Jalen Duren's really good. I think with the way that the minutes are being allocated now in Detroit, we have to start considering some of these guys more. And these are trends that we have to catch on early in this, like early when they happen, and get on them as the price moves up, right? And then when the price is too high, then we get off. Or if we see a different trend where it's like trending in the direction where they're spreading minutes out too much. So I do like the Duran call. I like the Cade call. I even don't mind Ivy. I think Ivy's in playing. I also think Alec Burks is not a bad spot. I'm sure it's an Alec Burks revenge game. I forget when he was in Utah. It was a while back. But hey, for the revenge guys out there, for cheap, I don't think it's bad because he can fill it up. And guards fill it up against the Utah Jazz, right? Like, it's one of those spots. The Bucks against guards, Utah against guards. I mean, it's just a good spot for someone like Alec Burks for 4-3 as a value if you want to go there. And you put it at small forward as well, which I don't mind. So on the Utah side of the ball, man, I do like targeting the Detroit matchup. I think it's similar to the situation we talked about the other day, like AP said. Sure, in tournaments, getting a max of 1 is fine, but that's it. Like, I don't want to be overweight on these guys. I don't mind them getting mixed and matched in. If a ceiling performance happens, it happens, and hopefully I land on an MME. But in single entry 3-max stuff, I just don't think it's necessary. If one of these Jazz guys goes off, I'll look at the top of the leaderboard and hope he's just not on the winning team, because I just don't think enough ownership's getting there where I have to do it in those contests.
All right, let's get to the last game of the night, the LA Clippers and Phoenix Suns. Obviously, the big news in this one, Kevin Durant going to sit this one out. Should be the only significant player, I believe, sitting out here. Yeah, all the Clippers guys are good to go. And then it'll be, of course, the Devin Booker and perhaps Bradley Beal show tonight. Beal coming off the Mega Chalk game against Portland. A little bit disappointing in that one, only 30 fantasy points across 34 minutes. But the minutes have been there. That's kind of the important thing, I think, with Beal going forward. Mangone, we'll start with you on this one. Clippers and Phoenix, 232 total. Clippers favored by 4. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I don't think the price is bad on Bradley Beal. I see so actually I should mention this on FanDuel, because this is one thing when I ran everything, I was like, I don't know if I'm doing that, but Chimezie Metu was someone that was popping a lot at 4.6, and Beal's going to pop a lot at 6.5 on FanDuel. I think the 6.5 on Beal's way better. Chimezie Metu is just like one of those guys when he's chalk, like I just want to be more under on him. Like if I get some, fine, but I don't think he's like just in general a good play, right? Like I at ownership, I just don't think he's that good of one. So I'm like, if you're playing the night slate tonight, dude, Chimezie Metu's ownership is going to be insane. I had a really nice hit on the night slate when I basically went way under on him and everyone was on him. I'm going to do that again tonight on the night slate for sure. I know AP was talking about having more night slate content. We're obviously grinding the Discord all night long. I will be lower on Chimezie Metu. If I put a core up there, you will not see a Chimezie Metu in there. I want to just be lower on it. I think Bradley Beal at his price is 6.9 on DK. It's fine. I think you could make an argument that if you land on him last guy in, that's okay. But I don't know. I like some of these other forwards that we mentioned in like that 6K range where I don't know if I'm going to get to Bradley Beal as much. And I think he's going to have ownership. The Clippers side of the ball, it's one of those spots where like we've been on the Clippers when guys have been out, but guys are all back, right? If you look at like the team, it just doesn't seem like a spot I want to get to. I know Mason Plumlee's back, and I was curious what he would do and if he'd be like a cheap value we get on early. Wrong slate, not right spot. I think overall it's really trying to make decisions on these Phoenix guys. And for me, I just think they spread the minutes out too much. We're at the price of 5-1 and the ownership of Metu. I don't love him. And Bradley Beal's more just like a last guy in that I don't mind getting, but he's not like a building block.
All right, AP, finish us off here. Clippers and Phoenix.
Yeah, I think like part of the problem was that they just were handling Portland last game. And so, I mean, Booker and Beal, they didn't really need to do a lot. And you saw like Bull had a game, like that was a great matchup for a guy like Metu. Like, am I going to pay 5-1 for Chimezie Metu in this spot? Probably not. I'm definitely with Mangone on that play. I will say, like Devin Booker, so a few things to keep in mind. Both teams, Clippers, Suns, they actually two of the slower paced teams in the league. It's a big total here. I think betting on offensive efficiency, to get to that number, guys hitting 3-pointers like Grayson Allen's been lights out from range. Then you got Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and obviously Harden on the other side. Norm Powell off the bench could bring a lot of firepower, but this just seems like too many mouths to feed for me on the Clippers side. If I did have to play someone, it would be Leonard or George individually, one or the other basically. And then on the Sun side, I will say, like, this does seem like a spot where Devin Booker shows up, puts the team on his back, and makes us a game. We've seen that multiple times. I love D-Book in spots like these. No one's going to play him. I think he's a great large field tournament play. And then I don't hate Bradley Beal as well. The usage was there last game. The price is still somewhat fair with no KD. I don't think he's like a building block play, but I don't mind him in this spot. So really it's just Bradley Beal or pass outside, or no, Devin Booker or pass, and then Bradley Beal is going to be someone I'm considering as well.
All right, that is all 10 games. We've got up to lock coming up quick, so we'll get out of here in a minute. But before we do, we got to do the plays of the day. We'll go to you first, Mangone. Who do you have for us? Eiffel Tower play of the day.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you two today. How's that?
Ooh.
I'm gonna give you two. I don't think I'm stealing anyone, so hopefully I'm not. For one, I'm going back to Brook Lopez. We're doing it again. We're going back to it. We want to play centers against Indiana, right? It's a matchup we always love to play. I talk about these flat-footed guys that don't get out to the three-point line. Also, what is Brook Lopez a specialist at? He's a specialist at getting blocks, right? Those add up quickly. And in a game with a huge total, there's more block opportunities. So 6K, the ceiling is still nice. We're going for 40 again for Brook Lopez. And then I'm going with Jabari Smith again. I really think he's going to be contrarian with all those forwards that people are looking at. And I think Jabari Smith is another contrarian forward that we want to get on tonight.
Love both those guys. Jabari Smith, Brook Lopez, Mangone's Eiffel Tower plays of the day. Let's go over to UAP. Gentleman's play of the day. Who do you got?
Yeah, we talked about kind of positional scarcity and how it could bring about some bad value plays. And then also, chalk Jalen Johnson, who I definitely like. But getting off of that, there's going to be a guy that's projected it for no ownership, really, really strong matchup. His usage recently has been absolutely insane, and that's Kyle Kuzma, 7-9, as a run back with those Cav chalk plays that we all like.
Good stuff. I think we might go 3 for 3 on the plays of the day so far. Hopefully I'll make it 4 for 4 with the Mom's Basement play of the day. Going to get us out of Mom's Basement with a nice 60-piece at low ownership tonight, Mr. Jalen Brunson. Going to get a double-double, points, assists, carry the load for the Knicks on national television. Love Mr. Jalen Brunson tonight as the Mom's Basement play of the day. That will do it for us. Thanks for tuning in. As always, we, of course, have the Up to Lock show coming up, as we always do. If you're a member over at Run Pure Sports, if you're not, no better time to join. Use promo code NEWGEAR to get 15% off. And that will do it for this show. I think a 2-game slate tomorrow, so I believe this show is off the air. We should be back, of course, on Friday, same time, same place. As always, we do appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't done so yet. For AP, for Mangone, I'm DC, and we'll check you next time.